American Way. Thom Hartmann here with you, and on the line with us this morning to start our program, one of my favorite people in the United States Senate, one of the really fine progressive senators we have in the Democratic Party, Sherrod Brown. Senator Brown can be reached his website, brown.senate.gov, and you can tweet him at Sen, S-E-N, as in Senator, Sen, Sherrod, S-H-E-R-R-O-D, Brown, B-R-O-W-N. Senator, welcome to the program. Welcome back to the program.
Good to be back, and I loved your commentary, and you got to come to Thom Hartmann to hear about the depth of P.T. Barnum. How cool is that?
Yeah, those book reports played while most of our stations are playing news, so most people don't hear that. But it was an interesting.
Well, that was their loss.
Yeah, but you know, the reason I read that book is because Donald Trump has said it's his favorite book. It's the only one he ever read, and it's so.
Seriously?
Yeah, and it's so completely inconsistent with the way he's lived his life. It's bizarre. So, anyhow, but
how does he explain it, or did
no?
Why he likes it?
No, he never has. He just always said The Art of Money Getting by P.T. Barnum was his favorite book, and you know, it's like, you know, it's a self-help book written in the 1800s, and it could be Tony Robbins. But anyhow, in Ohio, you've got a case that could change who gets purged from the voting rolls. Your state, Ohio. What's going on here? Tell me about this.
It's happening in various degrees everywhere in the country. There is an aggressive move by Republican legislators in many states, and Ohio is one of the worst, by Republican secretaries of state where they are, and there are many states, and Republicans control much of the machinery of state government, as you point out in your show, and by members of Congress, and it's just an assault on voting rights. I was Secretary of State, you may remember, in the 80s, and we didn't know each other then, but when I was, one of the things we did, we were always looking for ways to expand the right to vote, and Republicans never really opposed it. We did things, you could register at unemployment bureaus, you could register at license bureaus, you could register your utility bill off, and they'd send a form. Or McDonald's Corporation printed 1 million tray liners for us that you're registered. When you go to McDonald's, they put that piece of paper on your tray, and it's a voter registration form. You could register. We did programs that every high school had. So, and now Republicans are in a position where they're aggressively trying to decide who should vote. And it's never about fraud. That's what they say. It's really about making sure that people of color, that young voters, that veterans just don't vote. They want to, so they can't win elections fairly, so they want to determine through gerrymandering and aggressive voter oppression whom they can close out from the voting rolls.
And let's not forget older people. I've had people call into this program talking about how their mother or father, who is now in their late 70s, 80s, no longer driving, their driver's license has expired, and when they show up at the polls, the poll workers say, you've got to have a valid ID. We will not let you vote because your driver's license has expired. What the hell is going on?
Yeah, and some states won't accept a student state university ID. They restrict. They you know, I don't make this comparison entirely, but you certainly remember what happened from the Grant administration, at the end of the Grant administration, after he left office, all the way into the 60s, when there'd be all kinds of barriers put up, from grandfather clauses to guess the number of peanuts in this jar sort of thing, to keep people from voting.
Oh, the literacy tests.
Yeah, the literacy tests. They're more. I mean, they're more sophisticated now, but it's the same kind of thing. They want to choose who the electorate is. I ask people, we are organizing a petition, SherrodBrown.com, to put an end to voter purging. We want people to join us, and it's an ongoing effort to push back on all the creative ways they are trying to deny people the right to vote.
I think it's a really interesting point that you made, that you started out with, essentially, which was back when you were Secretary of State in the 1980s. That would have been during the Reagan era. The Republican Party had not yet come out in public and said that they're really only courting upper middle class and wealthy white people, and that they're actively seeking to discourage pretty much everybody else from voting. I mean, they were doing that. You had Paul Weyrich in 1980 famously give his speech, when he was the co-founder of the Heritage Foundation and helping run the Reagan campaign, that, frankly, we don't want everyone to vote. Elections are not decided by the majority. They never have been in the history of our country. Quite candidly, our leverage in the election goes up as the voter populace goes down. That's a verbatim quote. But that was in 1980. It didn't get any publicity. Reagan was putting many of these policies into place, but it didn't get much publicity. But lately, the Republican Party has basically come right out and said, with Chris Kobach and all this other stuff, if you are young and therefore more likely to vote in a progressive direction, if you are elderly and concerned about your Social Security and Medicare, if you are a person of color and concerned about discrimination and lousy pay, if you're a woman and concerned about the fact that you're being paid less, we don't want you voting, thank you very much, unless you're a white woman in a middle-class suburb.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. In the 80s, there was resistance on some of our efforts. But think about it. If McDonald's was willing to do it, if your local utility company was willing to do it, if your state Department of Education and local high schools were willing to do it, and we don't even register by party in Ohio. You just register. You don't join a party until you vote in a primary. So there is no partisanship to registration, and there isn't most places. You can register any way you want, and there shouldn't be. So there was not 100% consensus. There were the outliers like Paul Weyrich, but the local Republican machinery and the local party activists, they weren't particularly hostile to registration. The South may have been different with the black vote and civil rights. Not that there aren't civil rights issues and discrimination, of course, in states everywhere in the North, but there wasn't this concerted Republican effort. The word has gone out to Republicans everywhere. Do what you can to select whom you want to be actually going to the polls and voting. And we know that, we know that young voters increasingly are drifting away, or maybe even dashing away from Republicanism. We know that people of color, most will never think of wanting to vote for Republicans now. We know all that. They know all that too. And as you said, they want to make sure that it's wealthy white people, older, wealthy white people, that they want to vote. And as you say, if the numbers go down on voter turnout, Republican chances of winning go up. And if they'd only say that's why they want to do it, but they always talk fraud, and there is no real voter fraud. The fraud is, if there's any voter fraud, it's the people that are running the election systems and transporting the ballots and programming the computers. It's not some guy voting in Mansfield, Ohio, and then going to Zanesville and voting a second time. That just happens so rarely that it's not really consequential even in this.
Yeah, more people died from televisions falling on their heads in 2015 than were arrested for voting illegally.
How many people died from televisions falling?
I think it was 17 or 9 or 30. I don't remember the number now. I knew it at one time. I'm sorry.
Television fall in your head? How does that happen?
Probably most of them were television installers. There's a bunch of jobs that are more dangerous than being a cop. In fact, it's not even in the top 10.
Television installers to vote either, because they'd be working class voters.
There you go. So how far? Well, actually, before I get to that, Joe Stalin famously, perhaps apocryphally, but famously said, "It doesn't matter who votes; it matters who counts the votes." I would suggest to you that we've gone a big step beyond that. The Republicans are not only taking control of who counts the votes, the Have Act back in 2002, handing billions of dollars to the states to bring in these for-profit corporations who we later learned had clear Republican affiliations and preferences. Wally Odell's letter about turning Ohio out for George Bush, for example. He was the CEO of Diebold. Not only have we privatized our votes, something that Thomas Paine must be rolling over in his grave over, but that kind of goes along with Joe Stalin, but also, oh damn, we're hitting a break. I'm sorry. I missed the cue. Senator Sherrod Brown, we will continue this conversation another time. Thank you so much for being with us, sir.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Keep up the great work. It's great talking with you. I really appreciate it. Senator Sherrod Brown, SherrodBrown.com, brown.senate.gov, and you can tweet him at SenSherrod.